Fantasy is not an escape from reality, it's a way to understand it. Pan's Labyrinth, directed by Guillermo del Toro, is one of those rare films that linger in your mind long after the credits fade. It feels like a dream you can't quite shake, beautiful, unsettling and full of meaning. In this video, we'll explore how Pan's Labyrinth embodies the genius of Spanish Surrealism, that unique tradition where the dream world meets political history and myth becomes a form of truth. The story takes place in 1944, just after the Spanish Civil War. General Franco's dictatorship is rising and the country is bleeding, physically, spiritually and culturally. But even in repression, Spanish art found ways to speak. While the regime demands silence, surrealism whispers in symbols. In paintings, it was Dalí. In film, it was Buñuel. And decades later, Del Toro would carry the legacy, giving voice to the unspoken trauma through the language of myth. Pan's Labyrinth inherits this tradition. Its history told not through realism, but through the surreal, because sometimes only dreams can handle the weight of truth. At first glance, Pan's Labyrinth gives us two separate stories. The real world, ruled by the fascists, Captain Vidal, and the mysterious underworld, ruled by Faun. But Del Toro doesn't separate these worlds. He lets them blend into each other. The labyrinth and the military outposts are mirrors. Violence above, cruelty below. Discipline above, prophecy below. Ophelia, our young protagonist, moves between them. Her disobedience in both worlds makes her dangerous, to fascism, to patriarchy, to any system that demands blind obedience. Through her, Del Toro tells us something simple and profound. Fantasy isn't an escape from reality. It's an act of moral resistance. Spanish Surrealism is different from the French version you might read about in their books. For Spanish artists, Surrealism was less about subconscious freedom and more about survival. When Dalí painted Melting Clocks or Buñuel made Un Cien Andaluz, they weren't just playing with absurdity, they were critiquing the authoritarian, conservative society that denied individuality. Del Toro uses the same weapon in Pan's Labyrinth. Surrealism becomes a way to express what can be spoken: political terror, childhood trauma, or moral decay. The pale man, sitting motionless in front of a feast he forbids others to touch, is one of Del Toro's clearest metaphors. It's not just horror, it's memory. The pale man is fascism itself, greedy, lifeless, and hungry to control. Ophelia is more than just a child losing in myth. She represents the last piece of innocence clinging to a collapsed world. Every decision she makes carries symbolic weight. Each of her tasks echoes what's happening outside the labyrinth. Moral tests disguised as fairy tale quests. When she chose compassion over obedience, she defies both the Faun's strict rules and her stepfather's brutal logic. In that moment, she becomes what Spanish Surrealism has always thought: the dreamer who sees the real world too clearly. What makes Pan's Labyrinth so haunting isn't just imaginary, it is emotional honesty. The film doesn't promise safety or redemption, it tells us that imagination doesn't erase evil, but it helps us face it. Just like Goya's dark painting or Lorca's tragic poetry, Del Toro turns pain into art, not to soften it, but to understand it. In the end, the question isn't whether Ophelia's fantasy world was real. The real question is, what kind of truth did she find here? A truth that can't be proven but can be felt. Pan's Labyrinth isn't just a masterpiece. It's a bridge between the surreal tradition of the 20th century and modern cinema. It carries the DNA of Dalí's dream, Buñuel's rebellion, and the Spanish spirits that turn suffering into art. In Del Toro's hands, fantasy becomes something scared, a moral vision wrapped into gothic beauty. Or as Del Toro himself once put it, magic doesn't fit the world, it helps us see it more clearly. That's the genius of Spanish Surrealism, and that's why Pan's Labyrinth remains one of the most important films of a century. Not because it escapes reality, but because it dares to interpret it.